Now, here's where it begins. Nexstar Media Group issued this press release earlier today. Nexstar ABC affiliates to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely beginning tonight. They said Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse. And we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located, said Andrew Alford, president of Nexstar's broadcasting division. Continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time. And we have made the difficult decision to preempt his show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. Now, this also followed statements from the FCC chair on Benny Johnson's show saying, that effectively, you can't do things like this, right? We hit some new lows of the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to. Of course, that's Kimmel's statement. And this was Brendan Carr appearing on Benny's show, and they describe it as issuing threats against ABC and Disney. Now, NBC News has responded by saying that ABC pulled the show after the FCC threatened them, as if to make it appear as though the Trump administration got Jimmy Kimmel fired, when actually this was a private business interest that did it. And I'm going to give you a couple reasons real quick before we launch into the panel why this is likely the case. For one, I think Hassan made a great point. I didn't actually hear him say it, but it was reported in the New York Times that he was concerned about the death of Charlie Kirk because he could be next. And I think many of these television network execs, seeing the vitriol, are also concerned that if violence escalates, these people at the top of these networks they will be doxxed, they will be known. Nobody wants to live that way. And so if you're running a network and you see Jimmy Kimmel say explicitly, despite the fact law enforcement has already said, here's his motivating factors, Jimmy Kimmel says, no, it was Trump. It was the MAGA guys. You are fanning the flames of political violence in a very terrifying and dangerous way and mocking Donald Trump, whose friend just died over that clip, which I assume is probably out of context or Trump didn't hear, is despicable. And I'm sure the networks, aside from being offended, were more so concerned that Jimmy Kimmel was driving the temperature hotter and hotter in an extreme way. And so I think many of them are like, guys, if we don't put a stop to this and say we are not going to tolerate political violence, it'll escalate. If we do not punish those who are dancing on the grave and demanding more or lying about this, the left will be emboldened and there will be more death and the right will respond. There has to be a simmering down of temperatures. And that's why people are getting fired. And that's why Jimmy Kimmel got fired. But I'm curious if you guys agree, and what do you think?
I think that that's probably about the size of it. The idea that this is because of pressure from the government, I think that that's unlikely. I don't think that Brendan Carr just making a remark is actually enough to make people move, because I feel like that there's still a sentiment where if the government says, oh, we might do this, there's still enough people that would feel like pushing back on the government is worth the, it's worth the juice. Whereas if you're going to look at losing sponsors and losing, people, the higher ups at the company you work for, seeing significant repercussions, that'll get people to move. That'll get companies to move.
Yeah, it would be the relationship with Disney and Nexstar that would be the bigger issue here than it would be Disney and the government. And for the most part, what's sad is like this will end up benefiting Kimmel in the long run, because Colbert's ratings spiked after he got canceled, after his show was officially canceled, even though he's still on the air, his contract has to run out. And the most profitable aspect of his whole show right now is like their YouTube views are very high. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up moving him away from terrestrial television entirely, because this is a dying business model. The ratings in general for late night TV are, me and Tate were talking about it before the show now, are heavily dependent on whether there's sports on television at all these days. The ratings have been down consistently. And the funny thing is, Kimmel is number 2 in the ratings on late night, next to Colbert, who's already been canceled because his ratings are garbage. So everybody knows that this type of television is a dying model anyways. Why would you fan the flames in something that's so incendiary right now in a world where you hire 100 writers to work on these shows, which is why they cost a fortune to make and they lose money on every episode? Why with 100 writers could you not find a more palatable way to try to get your point across? You can't, because your point is disgusting.
I actually think, as to your point about being second in ratings, we know that Colbert was costing them tens of millions of dollars per year. I think Kimmel was as well, but they didn't know how to end his contract, or they couldn't end his contract.
It ends next year in 2026.
Indeed. I imagine they were probably saying we're not going to renew it, but we can't do anything right now. This pops up, and now they have a morality clause exemption to terminate his contract. And I'm sure they said, let's pull it.
Yeah. In addition to what you're saying about them not wanting to be associated with this side of things from potential vigilantes, they probably don't want the DOJ or related groups to see them as part of the Antifa, Soros network that could be getting rolled up or at least investigated. Because one thing you've seen on Twitter this week is the media companies, the media cable channels being really lumped in with that whole network of NGOs, nonprofits, law firms. So this could be a way to distance themselves.
Wait, Serge, is this fact check true?
So this is what when I was looking at it, it looked like it wasn't exactly like I'd seen the footage before. Basically, what he did was he took an old footage of Trump being asked a question and he dubbed over the question as if he had been asked that question. And it's not even the same thing. And if you watch the footage again, you probably see that it is from a year prior, I believe. But he dubs over the question kind of poorly. The reverb kind of gives it away. But yeah, I guess you can see it again. But
wow, hold on, let's play it.
Yeah.
See how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They just started.
So wait, what?
I'm trying from what I'm understanding when I've asked AI about this. From what I understand is that it was from a previous clip. I don't think that's from the same thing. They just dubbed the audio.
Right. So I don't know if I believe that, man.
That's
I don't know.
huge.
I'm not sure.
I would explain why it got canceled.
Yeah, like
so Serge asked AI, and it said that the clip of Donald Trump originally aired in 2024, and so you what did you ask ChatGPT this right now?
Yeah, basically what I know. I asked Grok. I haven't asked any other AIs. I just did when I first heard you talk about it. So I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Let's fact check that because that sounds crazy.
Yeah, Kimmel played. It's what it's telling me is Kimmel played the 2024 clip in the September 16th, 2025 monologue to mock Trump's unrelated response in a hypothetical context. But he doesn't really make it clear that it's a hypothetical context or anything like that.
Like I did remember.
It sparked accusations of decontextualization from conservative outlets like Fox News and New York Post. So
I thought I did remember seeing other White House reporters verifying that he said that, but then a lot of them were saying it was so loud and raucous in the area that there's no way Trump could have heard, especially parse out what the context.
They were talking about the White House ballroom, which has been.
I don't think Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah,
sorry,
I have no idea. I'm just
The discussion about the White House ballroom has been going on lately, though, so it's hard to believe that the clip was pulled from before.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm currently.
Oh, right, they're doing the renovations right now.
Yeah, so that.
Yeah,
seems
okay. That because. That seemed way crazier.
Yeah.
I mean, the part about characterizing him as MAGA is already crazy. That's something that's so verifiably proven false already, but they don't care. And that's one bridge too far as it is, which is why I'm sure a lot of people believe that Disney's issue here is that he lied outright about something like that's a whole other thing to edit that clip in such a deceptive way.
I'd like to offer you all this. To conservatives, I give you an argument, and to liberals, I give you your argument back to you. It's a comic from XKCD, which the liberals waved in our faces as our friends and even our enemies were censored, despite the fact we had objections to it because people are allowed to express their opinions. And in this rather ignorant comic, in which XKCD has no idea what he's talking about, liberals claimed this. Public service announcement. The right to free speech means the government can't arrest you for what you say. It doesn't mean that anyone else has to listen to your BS or host you while you share it. The First Amendment doesn't shield you from criticism or consequences. If you're yelled at, boycotted, have your show canceled, or get banned from an internet community, your free speech rights aren't being violated. It's just that the people that are listening think you're an a-hole, and they're showing you the door. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever read, and I'll tell you why. But this is what liberals stood on, as they said everybody with an offensive opinion who express it should be banned. In fact, people who said #LearnToCode were getting banned on Twitter.
It's worth pointing out the context surrounding the people that are losing their jobs or being quote unquote canceled now is the death of an innocent man, right? A murder. And they're complaining. They're saying, oh, cancel culture is back. And if you think about the reasons that people on the right got cancels, it was because they misgendered someone. They used the wrong swear word.
#LearnToCode.
Yeah, they said they were basically taunting media personalities or journalists on the internet.
Yeah, making fun of a journalist was grounds to be permanently banned.
So now it's ridiculous.
Yes, I understand, and I think it's an important distinction to say. People are losing their jobs for mocking the death of somebody, which shows a dramatic and violent escalation of the rhetoric, and what Jimmy Kimmel and others are doing could lead to more violence. That I completely understand. The underlying factor in these cancellations now is that a man is dead His wife and children were there and they watched it happen. And it is gruesome and horrifying. And we have a story from someone on the ground that I'm going to make sure everybody understands how serious this is. But let me make one thing clear first about this liberal argument. Free speech and the First Amendment are two distinct things. The right to free speech is a principle held by a moral and virtuous people. That means they themselves will not infringe upon your right. You can speak, they'll leave you alone. The First Amendment says the government shouldn't. XKCD wrongfully conflated these things because these people have no idea what they're talking about. And the last thing I will say to all the liberals that are crying about this, one, I still believe in free speech. I will still defend free speech, just not for you. You know why? Because you asked me not to. You came to me and said, Tim, if people say hate speech, they should be banned. And I said, I disagree with that. You said, this is the way I want to live. And then I said, okay, fine. I will uphold your wishes for you. So when Jimmy Kimmel gets fired, my response is, I don't care. I love it. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.